Are you going through a spiritual awakening and you're finding that your life is unintegrated? That means that there's a huge difference or distance between the ideals of spirituality or the altered state of consciousness that you can touch and your actual practical life, your social life, your family life, your work life, and your ability to embody these spiritual states or spiritual ideals in your actual daily human life. If that's the case, this video will be great for you because I'm going to discuss this integration and how to achieve it. And so let's get started with this video. So integration, a very common problem or situation that I see in people's lives that call me or that I saw in my own life when I was heavily engaged in spiritual practice, meditation practice on very long silent retreats, is that we can maybe touch some deep spiritual states during our meditation or on some psychedelic journeys or at different times, but your actual life does not reflect that. So what is it that you do when you wake up in the morning? What's your community like? Who are the people that you spend your time with, your group of friends, your romantic relationship, your relationship with your family, what it is that you do for a living? All these actual aspects of your life that exist out there are not reflecting all these beautiful spiritual ideals of yours. And this is extremely common. And this term was coined, which is called spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing means that we use spiritual ideals, spiritual ideas, spiritual thoughts, or spiritual states in order to try to bypass all these aspects of our actual life. And so spiritual bypassing is extremely common because we try to bypass all these childhood traumas, all these aspects of our life that take a lot of effort to build our social life, to build our professional life, the way that we make our living, the way that we speak to other people, our relationships with friends, our ability to relate. Many people that call me, I find that they don't really have very good social skills. This is very common. And there is this idea or this belief that if I get enlightened or this spiritual awakening, once I fully awaken, then this is going to solve all of my life's problems. However, what I found, and many others have found over the years, is that spiritual bypassing can be useful for some moments. So when you're going through some spiritual process, it can be useful to bypass some of these issues for some time, few days, few weeks, few months. But if you right now, in this moment, look at your life and you see that some aspects of your life, such as your romantic life, your social life, your professional life, your family life, all these parts of your life are not reflecting what you would like them to reflect, are not reflecting these beautiful spiritual ideals and spiritual thoughts, then it is time to think, why is my life so unintegrated? And how do I integrate it? Because if your life was more reflecting these ideals, there would be less tension inside. Because a lot of this tension is coming from this lack of integration. And of course, some aspects of our life are always going to be a work in progress. We are always a work in progress. But we can definitely get to a point where it becomes more integrated. And the more integrated it becomes, the better we feel, because there is less this distance between the ideal and the reality. And so how do we do this? First, we have to just have a very clear look at our life and ask ourselves, where do I want to be in a year in terms of my social life, for example? Are you able to make friends easily? Is that something that comes easily to you? Can you relate with people easily? What about your romantic life? What kind of patterns come up there? Because there's so many childhood traumas and so many conditionings from the past that come into the surface. And especially when we're going through this spiritual awakening process, these things come to the surface and they really stare at us. We really become aware of what's happening, all these patterns that are repeating in our life. And achieving some spiritual states or having some kind of spiritual realization or watching a lot of YouTube videos, if the situation continues and is always repeating itself, then it means that there is some deeper work to be done in terms of integration. And to do so, we have to focus our attention on that. And so, as I said, it starts by being very honest and sitting down and thinking, where do I want my life to be in a year in terms of my social life? What kind of skills do I currently have in terms of connecting with others? And where am I still restricted? Where am I not experiencing this sense of connection, this sense of oneness? Actually, spiritual practice and meditation practice specifically can definitely help us increase our capacity to connect with other human beings. Because so much as we have this feeling of separation, that I'm over here, you're over there, then connecting with others brings a lot of tension. And as we elevate our consciousness, or as our consciousness elevates, we can start to experience more this sense of deep connection that just comes by being in the presence of another person. And when it comes to your professional life, what is it that you do for a living, if you do anything at all? And is what you're doing for a living, is that reflecting these ideals that you have? Is it something that you're very passionate about? Is it something that you enjoy doing? And if not, it's time to see, okay, actually, there's a deeper truth here that I would like to face about my professional life. And so all these things you're gonna wake up spiritually. When you wake up spiritually, you're also waking up to the actual daily reality of your life and your personality. And as you wake up to these things, they may not match your ideals. And so it requires a lot of strength to clearly see yourself, because our mind tends to delude itself. We tend to delude ourselves in order to avoid harsh realities. But avoiding harsh realities does not solve them. And so if you're really brave, if you really want to integrate your life, it means you have to have a clear look at what's actually happening and what's going on there. As I said, in terms of your social life, your professional life, your family life, are you able to sit with your mother, with your father, and really be present with them and not judge them, and notice how you feel in their presence? If there's some past trauma coming up into the surface, when you're in their presence, are you able to process that and communicate that? What about your ability to communicate? So in the Buddhist tradition, there's a beautiful part of the path. Part of the path is called concentration and wisdom. And so that's our ability to get into altered states of consciousness and to attain to higher levels of spiritual wisdom. But the foundation is what's called morality, or living in the world. And one of those aspects is wise speech. How do you relate with others in terms of speech? Are you able to express yourself, your desires, your thoughts, your feelings clearly? If you see a person that you're curious about, whether in terms of friendship or in terms of romance, are you able to express that desire clearly? Or what happens to you in that situation? Are you able to have this wise speech in situations where you're angry? Are you able to express this anger? Because the more your life is separate between these spiritual ideals or spiritual states and the actual life, the more tension and suffering you're going to feel. And the more that these two are flowing together, and so I'm walking my path, I'm walking the wisdom that I have learned. I know that I don't like harsh speech. I know that I don't like dishonesty. I know that I don't like lying. And my behavior is more and more and more aligning with these values, these spiritual values. And the more that there is a difference between the values and the behavior, the more pain and suffering, and the less I'm going to like myself. So this is why integration is so crucial and so beautiful and brings so much joy and happiness into our life. And so what is it for you? What aspects of your life are the least integrated? You can just ask yourself this question and see. What about self-love? Many people think that through spirituality, through transcending the self, they can transcend all of their self-hatred or different aspects they don't like about their looks or their personality. But it is not the case. There's a lot of self-love work that has to be done in order to get there. Because transcending the self, which I've experienced many times through very deep meditative practice, doesn't touch those deeper traumas that we have from our childhood. And for that, other and deeper work is needed on those aspects. So trying to transcend your personality, transcend your life, you could do that, but your life is not going to be very integrated. And so these two aspects have to flow together, the actual daily life and our ideals and spiritual experiences. And the more there's a distance between them, the more that we suffer. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more of my help with spiritual integration or dark night of the soul or different spiritual experiences, you can click some of the links below. You can schedule a consultation with me, or you can join my free Facebook group, or you can get my free balance of mind training, and I'll speak to you soon.